is Matt Denny's 74.88 from Ramona, where he went absolutely yard, went and broke the old world record. He and Alekna just going back and forth, and this comp was insane. And to be a part of it, to see it, to, also hang out with Denny afterwards and just be, a good friend of him. I've paid him many a bets that I've lost. He's a good dude. So to see him have this success has been great. Now, let's look at it. We'll watch each one in full speed, and then we'll come back. We'll analyze it. We'll try to see what we can learn and how we can apply this. And then even I want to try to compare this to Mikolos's technique as well. If we look at this. Boom. This might have been his 74. I think he had two high 74s, if I remember. And it's funny because he hits this one. There was another one that he threw, I think, high 73s that he yelled on. But he was starting to get into it. And then at the end of the comp, he started to get a little more fatigued. Yeah, I'm going to be super clear. I've been biased towards Matt and his technique. I've always enjoyed his technique. I've always enjoyed his movement. I've always thought he has a little bit of a unique fall into the circle. I like to think about if there's a direct line down the middle of the circle, that as you're entering with that right leg sweeping, that your left shoulder and your left torso shouldn't be falling past that center line. And he does tend to do that, but that's a unique thing that then when he grounds, he just really works everything forward quite well. And he does things that I really, really thoroughly enjoy. I've always, this sort of rhythmic step, does he have to do that? I don't know if I would say he does, but I think it's like a nice timing thing that establishes, one, the timing, a stretch probably that helps just with that sensation there. To me, I've always felt like when he steps in, it's like the old German wind, that position there. And he's always been very good at holding a nice level left arm. And if you sort of watch, I'm literally like thinking through this, right? He just sort of follows that line. Okay, and I want to compare the same way that we did with Alekna, where we're looking at his pickup point, right? So if we go back and we look at right here, this basically being his pickup point. Left arm, that heel is not as open. That left foot is not as open as what we saw with Alekna. Alekna's arm or left leg was quite a bit more open. His left arm relative to his left leg, pretty similar to Alekna, except his weight seems to be going this way a little bit more. That's sort of my take on it. Now, the interesting part, this is what I talked about in his style, is I've always felt like he sort of crosses that center line and he doesn't open his left foot maybe as much as I think he could if he went a little wider with his right hip. And I've always played this theoretical game internally, like if Matt's right leg was a little bit longer relative to his left foot, would he have, in theory, more angular momentum created from that? I don't know. Does it matter? He threw high 74s. Like, I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But I've always liked, right, when he comes down and if you establish right here, he has a little bit of like, it's funny because I've always sort of thought he's had this little lower left arm, and that, hear me out, to me is like Virgilius Alekna's dad. He would do that left arm very, very similarly to what Denny's doing. Denny does that, like pretty similar. If I remember correctly, Virgilius will have a little more left elbow flexion. Now, and if we're looking at like high points, definitely Matt carries it, pretty high above the head, as does Alekna. Now, the one thing I also want to bring up, Matt has always, just like Mikolos, had this like almost slight hyperextension in the elbow, which helps lengthen things so well on him. And this dude's big. Like he's probably 6'5", 6'6", 320, 330. He got big. Like he's jacked. I would say he looks the strongest I've ever seen him. And I think he's snatched 150 or 160, somewhere in the middle there. And I know he's done crazy deadlifts at like 750 and squats, and his numbers are quite large. He does it. He still holds that. You see that. And I want to point out here, when he grounds, this left foot is pretty much in line with his knee. And related to this position, he doesn't open as much, or he opens it a decent amount. He's not as closed off as Mikolos is. Long right leg, dorsiflex right there. Okay. Comes down. Left foot's passing. Little shoulder lean. Right gets high. Still balanced. Left comes down, right probably there. And if you remember what we talked about with Mikolos, with that right arm, look at where that discus is. Right here. Relative to the left arm. Stacked over top. Right? So like that's the position that we're seeing these guys hit, that used to be more right here. This used to be like the old goal. That was like almost the position you used to want to hit. And that's now here. And it really stems back, I think, from the position out of the back, but I also think from mobility work. I also think from being aware of that. The right knee here really starts to come forward. I think you always see here with Matt is like that right knee really stays bent down. It's like he grounds, and I don't know if he thinks this, but it's almost like he flexes his quad down. And I actually think some people who struggle with the right hip and the right foot, if they think about flexing the quad down, flexing the kneecap down, they end up just seeing this rotate quite a bit more right there. You can see it's almost at like 90 degrees. We're going to be able to see that at the side angle. And then we're looking right here. Like look at that position, right? And I wanted to point out here, pay attention to how that right foot is on Matt. He tends to sort of like just slide it forward. Boom. And we've always done these videos where we talk about when you reverse, you're truly transferring forward when you see that. If we go right here and we go right here, that's where he reverses to. Right there. And another thing I want to bring up is that if we're looking at that position there, right? This is like what we're trying to see on Mikolos, that where the discus is just being carried a little lower, the hips here, that right shoulder's a little lower. It's pretty cool. I want to see from the side angle now what we can analyze, because I think we'll see something cool. I want to see what happens with his. There's Mikolos right there. Okay, so we go here, pick up, right? Left arm stays inside the left quad, right here. He gets wide. Right there's like where he really lengthens that right. That's a position. He's pretty level. Right comes down right there. Left foot's passing. He's got that position that I talked about, similar to Alekna's dad. High point is up. So he grounds, initially making double support right there. So he's actually catching that not as far back, maybe. That's where I thought he was down. He's more down right here. So he actually could make some improvements relative to Alekna there. And this might be the argument I could make on a 74-88 throw, is maybe if he had a little more weight this way, like, I don't know, he'd have a little more load on the right and he'd be deeper with the catch. But like, I don't know. What am I supposed to criticize? I'm not even trying to criticize anything, because I'm just trying to point out tendencies here. I want to point out this right knee right there. That's what I was talking about. And you can see here with Matt, this position here, talk about that flat left, right? That flat left coming down. You know, Alekna had it. There's a picture of Al Order. And this right here, I'm actually going to take a screenshot, reminds me of this picture of Al Order where it's flat left, right knee flexed, everything comes forward, boom, just so smooth. Now we'll see it from this angle. Hip to the foot. Okay, so right there, his right side, man, just the speed of that right side. The hip is through, and the discus comes after. Absolutely murders this. And it's so cool to see someone like Denny, someone like Alekna, and be able to look at their technique, learn from them, and then when you get athletes in, you can start to think about who can we use as a model to work towards. Not that they're going to throw exactly the same, but have that style that they can analyze and help build off of. So if you guys need help with your technique, with your training, head over to throwsuniversity.com. I hope you guys appreciate this. Peace.